Welcome back to Grade 7 History, Unit Number 2, Conflicts and Challenges in Canada, 1800 to 1850. This is Lesson Number 23. What were the consequences of political unrest? Before we begin today's lesson, let's consider the following. Do you think the reformers and the patriots were well enough prepared to rebel against the governments of Upper and Lower Canada? What consequences do you think they faced for engaging in armed uprisings? So, you might want to go back and watch the video for lesson number 22 just as a refresher. But if you're confident, go ahead, put the video on pause so that you can write down your responses to these two questions. All right, let's begin. By 1837, tensions in the Canadas were at a boiling point. The reformers drew inspiration from the American and French revolutions in the 1700s, and they pushed their leaders, William Lyon Mackenzie and Louis-Joseph Papineau, for action against the British. In Upper Canada, there were divisions among the reformers, which resulted in a Tory victory in the 1836 election. In Lower Canada, Britain's rejection of all 92 resolutions fueled patriot anger even higher. The Patriots had begun to organize rallies and prepare for a rebellion. They also boycotted British goods. British troops were sent to Lower Canada to stop the unrest. The government tried arresting some of the Patriot leaders. This led to an armed uprising at Saint Denis on November 23, 1837, which the Patriots won after the British troops retreated. Their victory was short-lived, however, as 2 days later another 400 British troops arrived and defeated the Patriots at St. Charles. Most of the Patriot fighters died in the second battle. The British troops surrounded the remaining rebels and set fire to the surrounding farms. And on the next two slides, I'm going to show you paintings which depict the uprisings at Saint Denis and Saint Charles. All right, and this first painting depicts the battle at Saint Denis. Based on what you read in the previous slide, does this painting appear to show an accurate depiction of which side won the battle? I want to go back and just reread that previous slide before you answer this question. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. The artist, Charles Beauclerk, was a commanding officer in the British Army during the battle at St. Charles. How might his role in the battle have influenced how he painted the event? So put the video on pause just so you can get a closer look and just write down your thoughts on how the fact that he was an officer in the British Army inspired this painting. And let's proceed. On December 14th, 1837, the Patriots staged one last stand at Saint-Eustache. The remaining 200 Patriot fighters faced a force of 1,280 British soldiers and 220 Loyalist volunteers. The fight ended quickly, and the armed rebellion in Lower Canada was over. The victorious British Army looted and burned the rebels' houses. Papineau and the other Patriot leaders fled to the U.S. The remaining Patriot fighters were arrested or killed by the British. And based on what you see in this painting, how were the British troops able to defeat the Patriots so quickly? I'll give you a hint. Just take a look at how the Patriots are arranged and then take a look at the arrangement on the side of the British Army. Okay, let's continue. In Upper Canada, William Lyon Mackenzie had become a major supporter of the Patriots. He campaigned for the reformer cause, giving fiery speeches and printing angry, hateful articles about the family compact and the Tories in his newspaper. Mackenzie's reformers had a new reason to be angry. The Tories had used bribery and corruption to secure the support of new British immigrants in order to win the 1836 election. As a result, riots broke out between Mackenzie's reformers and the supporters of the Tories during the election. And Mackenzie's original office and printing press for his Colonial Advocate paper were destroyed by a group of men who were never punished for their actions. Mackenzie took his case to England, where he won enough money to build a new, even stronger Colonial Advocate printing press. When Lieutenant Governor Francis Bond had heard about the rebellion in Lower Canada, he sent British troops stationed in Upper Canada to help defeat the Patriots. Mackenzie realized that the rebellion in Lower Canada was distracting the British, and so this would be a good time for his Upper Canadian reformers to launch their own rebellion. And here we see a picture of Francis Bondhead, and he would be quite swift in dealing with Mackenzie and his rebels. This proclamation offered £1,000 to anyone who aided in the capture and arrest of Mackenzie. And at the time, £1,000 was a pretty large amount of money. For those of you who are interested, if you ever go to Mackenzie House, which was William Mackenzie's final residence during his life, there's actually a printing press in Mackenzie House that's still in operation, and you can actually purchase a replica of Bondhead's proclamation. On December 5th, 1837, Mackenzie and about 800 supporters marched down Yonge Street in Toronto. They stationed themselves at Montgomery's Tavern, located near present-day Eglinton Avenue. The next day, Mackenzie's group marched toward the downtown area to obtain much-needed guns and ammunition. They had few firearms of their own and had been carrying sticks and shovels. Unfortunately for Mackenzie, Bondhead had been aware of Mackenzie's plans, and when the reformers arrived, a group of 30 well-armed loyalists were able to scatter the rebels. Later that evening, the rebels reorganized under a more experienced military leader. However, the British forces now numbered 1,000 men. 2 days later, the rebels were defeated and the British burned down Montgomery's Tavern. Another group of rebels from London and Ontario tried to join Mackenzie, but they were quickly defeated. Tory supporters burned down homes and farms belonging to known rebels, and even those belonging to people who were only suspected supporters. With the rebellion of Upper Canada ended, Mackenzie escaped by dressing as an old woman and fleeing to the US. Some of his followers were arrested. Two of Mackenzie's top lieutenants, Samuel Lount and Peter Matthews, were publicly hanged. Over the next year, Mackenzie tried gaining support in the US. He and his supporters tried launching a number of raids from their safe haven in America. However, aside from gaining a few sympathizers who supported political change in Upper Canada, the rebels could not gain enough support, and so they gave up. And this image here depicts the public hanging of Lount and Matthews. So there was a full audience on the street to witness the hangings. And my question for you is, why do you think Lount and Matthews were publicly hanged? Why did they want people to come and see this execution? Something to consider, because we'll talk about it in tomorrow's class. In total, over 1,000 people were arrested for treason, 100 were exiled, and 15 were killed. Three questions now needed to be answered. Why were these rebellions allowed to take place? How could future rebellions be prevented? And what would the future now hold for Canada? The man in this photograph is John Lambton, the first Earl of Lambton. He is better known as Lord Durham. And in our next and final lesson in Grade 7 history, we will learn how Lord Durham was involved in finding answers to the three questions which I read earlier. But for now, let's finish today's lesson by considering the following. Number one, why do you think most of the new British immigrants arriving from Europe did not support the rebels? Why would they support the government instead? And two, do you think the British government benefited from these rebellions? And if so, why do you feel this way? So, as always, you're going to put the video on pause so that you can write down your responses to these two questions. If you don't feel ready to answer either of these questions, it means you need to go back and watch this video at least another 2 times. And then when you're ready, put the video on pause. And I look forward to hearing everybody's responses to these questions, as well as the questions that were given earlier in this video. But until tomorrow's class, this concludes today's video.